In my latest video, I showed you an overview of rulers, monarchs, and a shadow monarch. Today, in this video, we'll briefly discuss them. If you haven't seen that video yet, make sure to watch it first from the I tab so you can understand this one better. Today, we'll discuss why the absolute being was killed, or how Ashbourne became the shadow monarch. Alright, let's dive in. So, when the solo leveling story began, there was only light and darkness. There was this super powerful being, like the universe's god, called absolute being, who could do pretty much anything. He made the divine heralds from light and 8 monarchs from darkness. Later, people started calling the divine heralds rulers, so we'll stick with that term in this video. From the start, the absolute being gave them opposite tasks. The monarchs had to wreck the world, while the rulers had to protect it. But then, what happened next? These two groups kept on fighting forever with no end in sight. One day, the smartest light fragment, a ruler, went to the absolute being. He asked why the absolute being didn't give them more power to defeat the monarchs and end the fight. They even said, "Just help us once, and you'll see how we'll offer the enemy's heads at your feet." But the absolute being didn't even reply. That was the moment when the rulers realized that the absolute being wasn't involved at all. Yep, he was just doing it for fun. Well, there were 3 big rules from the absolute being. First, everyone had to worship him. Second, everyone had to praise him. And third, they had to be loyal to him with their mind, body, and blood. Remember, these same rules were on the Cartenon Temple, and it also said that anyone who didn't follow these rules wouldn't be forgiven. But the rulers noticed that even those who followed these rules were getting killed in the war for no good reason. That's why the rulers decided it was time to kill him. They figured as long as the absolute being was around, the war wouldn't stop. There was one ruler who didn't want to go against the absolute being, and he stood up against everyone else. That ruler was Ashbourne, who was supposed to be the strongest among them. But since the other rulers were united against him, he couldn't stand his ground and ended up dying, or so they thought. Ashbourne actually rose again, but this time on the side of darkness. So how did this happen? Well, Ashbourne had a special power given by the absolute being. With this power, whenever Ashbourne said arise, the soldiers who had died in the war would wake up as his shadow army. Just imagine, many brave soldiers who died in battle now serving as his shadow army. With his new army, Ashbourne tried to save the absolute being, but by the time he got there, it was too late because the other rulers had already killed the absolute being. Now, many viewers might wonder how the absolute being, who was the most supreme and powerful, lost to the rulers. Well, even though he created everything and had unlimited power, he wasn't a fighter. He could create anything, but he couldn't fight or defend himself without creating things for that purpose. But before he could create anything to protect himself, they already killed him. After killing the absolute being, these heralds started calling themselves rulers. I've been using rulers from the start to avoid confusion. These rulers grabbed some powerful tools from the absolute being, which helped them become strong enough to defeat the monarchs. This upset the balance of power because now the rulers were stronger than the monarchs. So now you understand how the absolute being died and how Ashbourne became the shadow monarch. I'll keep sharing hidden insights like this to make your anime experience better. So be sure to subscribe to my channel to catch all the useful details about solo leveling. See you in the next video. Goodbye.